welcome to Quarantine Question and Answers with Vet Med Kid, aka me, Leanne. You're going to have to excuse this kind of funky lighting situation that I've got going on. Thanks to COVID-19, I am in lockdown in New Zealand, and so I have spent today clearing out our garage with my mum. Goodness gracious, that is a huge job in itself. But it meant that I found some exciting old nostalgic games that I used to play. My Nintendo DS. How about a bit of Nintendogs? Forgot that I was a pet owner and had to go and give some food and some water to these dogs. Don't be like me. If you haven't picked up your Nintendo DS for 5 years and you have Nintendogs, go and feed those poor pets. I also found that I have Imagine Pet Vet. Kind of feel like that's where I'm at right now with this degree I'm imagining. I thought it was so close. I thought it was at the end of 2020 I would be a pet vet. Sorry, my Tamagotchi needs to be cleaned up. That's another thing I found. I am a Tamagotchi mom. I forgot about that. Back to being an imaginary pet vet. My situation at this stage is that my university has decided to close everything off. So we're all online now, which is great that we can continue to do uni, but it's a bit upsetting because it means that we're online for an indefinite period of time, and then hopefully once the majority of this COVID situation kind of blows over, if that's even the right term to use, we'll go back to doing our practical elements of the degree, and that'll be later this year. But that also means that there's been huge changes with the structure of the degree. So we're doing a huge chunk of online segments, some self-directed learning, which I think is basically time for us to do our assignments. We've got 3 big ones. And then, hopefully I'll be able to get back in the country because I flew home to New Zealand, found out on Thursday night that everything was going to go online, booked my ticket on Thursday night, flew out on Friday morning, and am now in New Zealand because I decided that it would be better, with my family, we decided that it would be better for me to be at home with them rather than just in Gatton by myself if we did end up going into lockdown, because my housemates were going to go and live with their family. So that's why I'm here, and I will be working online. I have set up a nice new schedule, which I will hopefully stick to. I'm kind of thinking that I will stick to it because my family are working from home and they've all got like actual jobs. They're not just students. So they'll be working 8:30 to 5 every day. So I will have nothing else to do. Although now I've also found my Tamagotchi and Nintendo DS and bananagrams and rush hour and everything. But I will hopefully actually do uni. I will actually do uni. I'm telling myself I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. But in the meantime, because it's still the weekend, I thought, why not do a quarantine Q&A? So, as you guys know, I asked for some responses on my Instagram. Don't forget, that's at VetMedKid if you don't already follow it. So why not get started? First question from Claire Benstead. COVID and final year, how is it affecting placements, rotation, grad, etc.? So, as you heard before, we've gone online for an indefinite period of time, and then we'll be doing our placements later on in the year. It has meant that we are very likely not going to be doing our Viva exams for 5th year. There's going to be a replacement type of assessment for that sort of thing, because that ends up taking 3 weeks of the year, because you've got your SWAT vac, which is your study period, and then you've got the 2 weeks of Viva exams, which we now need to fit in our actual practical work. So that's likely going to be taken out. In terms of graduation, I'm hoping that we're still going to graduate at the end of the year. Maybe we'll be pushed out. Usually we have our graduation around the 6th of December, like the actual ceremony. I'm guessing that's going to be pushed out. Maybe it'll be the end of December. Maybe it will be January. Not entirely sure. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it's still 2020, but we'll see. Next question, Bridget_20. How to get over feeling you aren't good enough to be a vet? Gosh, that is a difficult question to answer. I think it's kind of something where you need to like work in progress for it. Some days you'll be all good, and then other days it'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Or I'm never going to be good enough for this. And I think the one thing that I really kind of like focus on is when you're comparing yourself to what you're going to be, you look at other vets, right? And then you're like, well, they know so much stuff, they can do so much stuff with, like, how am I ever going to get to that level? But what you're doing is you're literally comparing yourself to somebody who's been doing this for like, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So somebody who this is all second nature for them, even just like they've got the muscle memory, so they're doing their sutures and they're super quick, but it's because they've done it day in and day out. So I think for me, I often just try to think about it like, I will eventually get to that stage. It's just going to take time. And I often, like, I find it really useful to kind of sit back and be like, oh, what was I like in first year? And what am I like now? And you realise, okay, actually, I was quite a pleb in first year. I'm sorry, that was my Tamagotchi. This is a serious topic. I'm going to give it a bit of a telling off because that was naughty. I apologise. So basically, just realise that you're just growing, and you will get there eventually. You might not be good enough just yet, but you're going to have time on your side, and you're going to be taught all these things, and then you also pick up tips and tricks along the way. So you might not be good at something immediately, but you'll get there. Hopefully that's helpful, Bridget. If you guys can think of any other really good ways to get over feeling that you aren't good enough to be a vet, chuck them in the comments. I'm sure everybody has that question come up over and over again. So any suggestions that you have, they will be well received. Right, another awesome question from Bridget. How do you get study material to stick in your brain? I wish I had the answer for that one too, but I think it just depends on the subject. I find that I like to change my study methods. If something isn't working, I will try something else. So if just reading my notes isn't getting anything to stick in my brain, which I often find that doesn't, I will write it out, or I'll try and teach it to myself. And I use like a whiteboard or a piece of paper as like a prompt. I also like to use flashcards, or I like to go onto YouTube and watch different videos. I really like the whiteboard method. I don't know, I wish I had the answer for that, but that's the kind of thing that I like to do. With the flashcards, I go through them and then I put them in piles. So one is the pile where I got everything correct straight away. The other is a pile where I didn't. And then I'll put the pile that I got everything correct to one side, and I'll work through the pile that I didn't get the first time, and I'll do the same thing, and I'll just keep working my way through until everything is in the pile where I got it right the first time, and then I'll get everything together and I'll go through it again, and I'll just keep doing that. It's kind of more of like a memorization type of parrot learning route. So I really like the idea of reading through notes and then teaching yourself it, but when you teach it to yourself, you use your own words, because that way you're thinking it through and using like mind maps and that kind of thing. Or another thing while I'm teaching myself it is I like to do like hand actions. As you can see, I talk with my hands a lot. And then when I'm sitting in an exam, I can be like, oh, that correlates to something or other. I don't know, and I like my hands like remind me what I was learning. I also like to use a lot of acronyms. Often the sillier the acronym is, it's usually the ruder the acronym is, the more likely it is that it's going to stick in your head. Oh, I also have a friend who likes to relate things back to people in our cohort. I can't remember exactly what she used, but she used for some respiratory disease. She had it like relating to me because I was coughing a lot the year that we were learning it, so all the signs and symptoms and stuff, she'd be like, oh yeah, Leanne was doing that at this party and then at this prac, and you know, that kind of thing. So then just make like a story about it so that it's easier to remember. I think the story thing is really helpful too, because then you can work your way through and you can be like, you can realize when you're missing a whole chunk that's important, because you're like, wait, the story doesn't make sense anymore. So yeah, unfortunately there's nothing that I can just be like, do this and you will get straight A's, because every person studies in a different way, and often I find you have to change your study methods for each course, because they're basically asking for you to remember different information. Like anatomy, it's very rote learning, whereas like the physiology kind of stuff is more like actually understanding processes and that kind of thing. Raha Eddie asked me, how can you be so active? Wasn't really sure what Raha meant, because I was like, active as in like, look at me, I do like lots of star jumps, or active as in I'm on my phone so much, I'm socially active. Turns out Raha meant, sorry if I'm saying that name wrong, that I was really good with my time management and like getting to do a lot of things. To be honest, I never feel like I'm great with my time management. It's something that I'm continually working on. Maybe I am. I feel like definitely if there's like a deadline, I will prioritize my to-do list. Yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing that I would recommend, is write down the things that you know you need to get done and then prioritize them so that you can spend the most effort and time on your most important things and then work your way down. Well, that wraps up today's quarantine Q&A. Don't worry, there are more questions to come, so there will be a part 2 of this video. Keep an eye out for them, and in the meantime, stay safe, stay at home, and wash your hands.